Right, we'll look to resume the meeting. Thanks, everybody. We'll go to item number 2, which is notification of additional items. Nobody's let me know, so I'll move to the next item, which is declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest on any item today? No? We'll move to the next item, which is public comment. We do have public comment. We've got a public comment today from Craig. If you wish to come forward, Craig is wishing to do public comment on the skate park. Craig, you've got 3 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Craig McClay. I'm here to talk to you guys about a further extension of the Palmerston North Skate Park due to the massive increase of usage within that existing park. It was built first in 01 and then I was the lead on the upgrade in 2011, which was completed in 2017. The success of that created a conversation with MDC and we completed their park last year, and we have a further project on with the refurbishment of the Johnston Park in Feilding as well. Once again, that's around the success of the park just built and the overflow that it's just busy, and so that's why MDC has taken on that, and I'm here to approach you guys about looking to extend the Palmerston North Skate Park. I would expect to co-fund it with Eastern and Central Trust. We work with those guys in, we have in-school programs now with skateboarding. We're building the growth of the sport locally. It's a massive increase nationally and internationally. One of the surprising things from COVID was the push towards individual sports due to the self-isolation. Currently, as a $4 billion business, there's massive shortages due to the increased popularity. We go into schools and we teach kids to skate at a basic level. We instill them with resilience and confidence, and we get them going. And this is only pushing the sport further in the Manawatu. What else we got here? So yeah, we've been in Ashurst, Roslyn, Feilding Intermediate. We're about to go into Palmerston North Intermediate School, West End, and we're about to offer after-school programs. All of this will generate massive interest, and every time we've gone into a school, our weekend programs are absolutely chocker, which we do here, and we're about to begin in Feilding again in 2021. Once again, these are all funded in part by Eastern and Central through the charitable trust Onboard Skate. And just on a offside as well, in the US, skateboarding has just passed baseball as the third most participated activity in the United States of America for the young people demographic, I guess you could say. We just see skateboarding as not slowing down. It's gone through cycles, but now with the massive interest with the 2021 Olympics now, with the major shoe brands, Adidas, New Balance, Nike, Reebok, there is no going back. It's always going to be exponential growth from here on. And with the Palmerston North Park, what's happened now is it's so busy that you really have to pick your times to go down there. I know there are a couple of articles from a young man in the Evening Standard, and he's not wrong. There are, if you go at peak times, which would be 11 till 5, there's definitely issues around overcrowding. We just would like to ask you for some more space and just get the extension done.
Great, that's your 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Are you happy to take a couple of questions?
Yes.
I've just got a couple. One is that the person that came was, the concerns that he had was around that junior kids couldn't get onto the skate park, or they were a bit intimidated by it. Yes. What's your view on that?
Well, the most busiest times is when it's full of young kids, so a lot of the older skaters and users wait till the evening. A lot of it comes down to situational awareness though. A lot of these kids don't have it and they don't look up, and we've tried to instill a sort of park etiquette around looking before you go. We can get some success with that, but yeah, a lot of it's around the kids just don't look up. That's one of the reasons why the older people just wait till the evening So, and even during those times, it's busy. So there is an issue there. I have some issues with mountain bikers turning up at the park. It's a lot of metal to take out a young kid, which I've seen 3 times in the last 6 months. So yeah, it's at its capacity now, and without a further extension, there will be more issues like that.
Second question's around, we've got retailers that are a little bit upset with the new street being used down, going towards the plaza. A lot of the skateboarders are now using that, and so some of the retailers are a little bit upset about that. What's your view on that? The two main disciplines in skateboarding are transition, ramp skating, and street skating. They're both, street skating is the 98% of what skateboarders do around the world and locally. You can build parks, but it's like, what's the saying, you can't lead a horse to water or whatever it is. I mean, we've got most of them at the park, but because there is actually a skate shop, in that new build, that's half of it there, because a skate shop is also a community hub for people, because that's where they go meet their crew and then they go out to the park or whatever. So I can understand their concerns, and the best thing you can do to alleviate that even further would be to build an extension and create more enticing objects and stuff like that for them. Thank you, Craig.
Cool.
I've got 2 questions that will just come through, and I'll just allow those 2 questions. So first is Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Craig, for coming in. So the petition that was presented by a young person to this committee a couple of months back, specifically his request was around an area for younger people.
Yes.
Would it be your view that that's what's needed, or are you meaning just an extension of more of the same of what we've currently got? We
would create a beginner to medium area at the skate park, much like we did with Fielding. Fielding's MDC's directive was a beginner to medium park, so that's what we did. So, I mean, we can build that. We'd just have work design groups with the kids with a few parameters around the size of the objects and things like that, and then we would work with designers to get there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thanks for that. And just also, you talked about co-funding with Eastern and Central Trust. Yes. So, has there been conversations with them already about that?
Not for this project, no.
Okay, no. But have you got some level of confidence that
yes,
could be achieved?
Absolutely.
Okay, yep. Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. And final question from Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in regards to the location that we got, are you would support an extension to that park rather than establishing another park on the balancing side of the city to offer 2 opportunities?
That was what I was thinking. I mean, if you were to look at Calvin Grove or up on Summerhill, if you were to do a separate park, it would need to be where, I guess, the greatest grouping of young kids are at this point in time, and where the forecasting would go, where the families move to and things like that, I'd imagine. That requires then a whole set of maintenance issues that would be separate from the skate park. So I'm in 2 minds as to whether you would actually build a separate or just add on to the Palmy Park. At this point, I'm a fan of adding on to the Palmy Park and centralising the whole lot. That would be where I think the most sensible decision would be. I think if you're in Auckland, then you would build suburban parks, but we're not at that size yet. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you very much for coming in. We do appreciate that.
Cool. Thank you for listening, guys.
We did have a second, thank you, Craig.
I'm good.
We did have a second person coming in for public comment today on Memorial Park. Her name is Janine Schoon, and Hannah is going to read that out. She actually got called into work, so Hannah's going to read her public comment out. It's just going to take a couple of minutes.
This document is available in LG Hub as well, and we've got some paper copies here for you. Submission to the PNCC. Kia ora ana koutou. I'm a grandmother of 6 moko, aged between 10 months and 13 years of age. I've been taking my 3 sons and my grandchildren to Memorial Park for the past 30 years. I've worked in the social service industry for over 25 years and live in Highbury. I read the article regarding Memorial Park and was horrified that this project was on hold due to lack of funding. I know people's reaction to this article was shocked and saddened that we will not have access to a park that offers whānau where I live an equitable solution, not only on a financial level, but also on a socio-economic level as well. We cannot have this park closed for our whānau in Highbury, Awapuni, Tākaro, when some of the most vulnerable whānau have very little to look forward to. Our whānau cannot afford the cost of sending their tamariki to the Lido every day over the Christmas holidays. This venue is the only free swimming options that is in a safe environment for children under 12 years of age. I understand the constraints councils, community organisations, sporting bodies have and will have for the next 10 to 20 years to recover from COVID-19. I'm not asking for the council to fund towards this any more than they can, but requesting a portal for donations from the community. We require $235,000 to finish off the park. That is 23,500 people to donate $10 each. I'm happy, as are many more in this town, to donate to have this park open on time for Christmas and New Year holidays. Janine Schoon.
Thanks, Hannah, for reading that out for us. Obviously, we can't ask any questions, so we will now move.
Actually, Madam Chair, I come in the queue for questions because I wondered if I could seek a comment from an officer in response to the issues raised in that public comment.
We're actually going to have a report at council meeting on Monday on Memorial Park. I've had word from that from the Mayor, so we'll save those to the officer who's going to be putting the report to council on Monday.
With respect, Madam Chair, I think that's going to be a Part 2 report and there's significant public interest in this issue. If officers are able to comment now, that would be appreciated.
Put your question to the General Manager.
Thank you. So specifically, the public comment asked about getting this park open for Christmas. I wonder if there's a specific response to that point and also the funding question that was raised as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll, through you, Madam Chair, I'll ask Kathy to comment on the timing of that. My understanding there is not anything that we can do before Christmas, but I think Kathy will be able to give you the horizon that it can be achieved when we do get our funding result.
That is correct. Even with the external funding in place for the splash pad, the paddling pool, because it's an integral part of the construction site, would not be able to be opened until towards the end of March at the earliest, providing we didn't have any weather delays. That is because it is a working construction site and there are safety issues associated with people interacting with that site, and also physically it is very difficult to secure off the one area. So even with the funding in place, the pool would not be open for the main part of the summer swimming season.
Kathy, do you want to remain? I've got another councillor wants to ask another question. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Kathy. It's just around your description of it as a paddling pool. The part of the pool that you can swim in is at least waist deep on me, and I know lots of children swim in it. So when you refer to the paddling pool, are you referring to the whole thing, or just what we would think of as a paddling pool, which is about 6 inches deep? Do you see what I mean? I'm just trying to be clear what you're referring to there.
To the whole pool. The pool fencing is around the whole pool, but the whole pool would not be able to be opened. I refer to it as a paddling pool because that's what it's been affectionately known as. However, I am aware that there is an area there that is available for swimming.
Okay, so when you're saying the paddling pool can't be able, do you mean the whole thing, paddling and the swimming part?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One further question from Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in regards to the response from the community, because I've had an approach from Janine and others around wanting to start a fundraising initiative, but the 200-odd figure that was referred to in the public comment was part of the press release, but I understand we've had some ongoing success with other contributions toward this program, and is that any other details that can be made public on that amount that's outstanding?
Yes, there are other details that can be made public, so I'll ask Bevan to come and do that now.
We've got the money. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all, we got the final lot this morning.
Are you able to say how much you've got?
I can, however, the funders requested we do a joint press release.
Okay.
So if we're able to, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that. I know that there was a desire for the community to contribute, and I had an increasing feeling that there was no need to do the fundraising efforts and to alleviate that desire. Yeah, thank you. I think that's achieved that. Thank you.
Thank you for being clear on that. There's no further questions on this matter, but thank you very much to Janine for bringing this up at this time, but we will have another discussion on Monday. Right, we will now move to presentations. We're looking to the first presentation, which is from Nicholas Jesson. Oh, first off, we'll just receive this, so I'll look to move that, seconded by Councillor Meehan, and we'll look to vote. That's passed for 100%. Thank you. Right, well, over to you, Nick, and...
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Phoebe Moyer,
Hello, Phoebe.
the first unregistered member of the Jesson Unincorporated Society.
Great.
And we've just got a PowerPoint that we've brought up. Just want to note that before I begin that I've put my views on this matter rather more succinctly in the written material, the written submission I've provided, and I think I've got 10 minutes to talk.
Yes,
and,
I was just going to outline, you've got 10 minutes, Nick, and you know the 10-minute system, so just when it gets to red, we will stop you, so thank you for that.
All right. I'll start my own timer as well, Madam Chair, just so I can keep track, because, as you know, I tend to go on occasions. Just to introduce myself, and thank you for the time, councillors. I'm Nicholas Jesson, lived here my whole life. I've also been a swimmer for my whole life, and I have a long history in, I suppose, using the facilities in Palmerston North. If we just go back to the previous slide, sorry, Phoebe, I'd better quickly outline first why I'm here, and it's written in my written submission. I believe that, well, I care about Palmerston North. And for a long time I've had a view that the facilities here haven't quite been right in terms of how they provide for aquatic sports and for active recreation users of the swimming pool facilities. And it's not a question of quantity of those facilities or necessarily a comment on whether or not those facilities are nice. They all are. And I note that Lyndon's here and he's going to jump on me if I dare to criticise the Lido, which I won't do. I love the Lido, but in terms of the facilities and how they provide for the needs of our aquatic sports users in particular, my view is that there's no one facility in Palmerston North that does provide for all the requirements of those sports, and as a consequence that flows on to the active recreation users of those facilities. In my submission. And I think there's an opportunity here as well, and I've taken some care in my written submission to explain that I'm not trying to bring a problem to the council. I think it's in fact an opportunity for the city to get ahead in terms of providing a facility of the type that I'm sort of interested in. So that's what I'm here, and I think we can move on to the next set of slides. These are rather self-indulgent, I have to confess. They're all just sort of pictures of me. And my family. That's my mother in the top right teaching swimming. She's been a swim teacher for 27 years at the West End pool, and most recently for the last 10 years at the Lido. Bottom right, that's Daniel Loader, perhaps quite inappropriately signing my sister's chest on the left, that's at the Lido, by the way. On the left side is one of the old famous swimathons that used to occur at the Lido back when I was a club swimmer, and that gorgeous photo in the middle, not sure who that is, but he looks like a pretty sharp swimmer emerging from the 50-metre outdoor pool at the Lido some time ago, many years in fact. Now, I have swum a long time. I've swum in many of the country's facilities around. Spent a lot of time in Gisborne, which is getting a new facility to provide them for an indoor 50-metre pool facility. Hastings has received funding in one of the earlier rounds of funding, $32 million, I believe, for an indoor covered 50-metre swimming pool. Te Rapa up in Hamilton's an incredible facility. I've spent a lot of time in the Kilburnie pool in Wellington. They are all fantastic facilities. Martin, I note, has a covered indoor 50-metre facility, which a lot of our local swimmers go and train over at certain times of the year, and I think it's a real gap, I suppose, in the facilities provided by Palmerston North, that it doesn't have a facility to sort of match that. And looking forward into the next 50 years, these swimming pools have lives of 50 years. I didn't start my timer. I've already done half my time. I really see that as an opportunity. We'll better move ahead since I'm just looking at myself. The Palmerston North facilities are fantastic. They do not meet requirements for a lot of the users. The Lido, for example, that 25-metre pool we were just looking at, that was built in 1983. It is the John Bolt Memorial Pool. A councillor who passed away and was involved in the planning for that pool. It comes up to roughly my waist, which is just not deep enough for any water polo events, probably not canoe polo either. It has no seating, so it can't host swimming events. And of course, as the major facility in Palmerston North for about 8 months of the year, there is only that indoor 25-metre pool. I don't want to ignore the outdoor pool, which is, again, a fantastic facility. I love swimming in that. So do a lot of active recreation users in Palmerston North. It's 7 lanes. It's uncovered. It can't host national swimming events, and certainly not outside of the period of, say, December through to April or May, when it shuts again and everybody's forced inside. Just to go through quickly, those same sort of basic facility constraints are with all of the facilities in Palmerston North. There is not one that can take all of the events that our junior members of our community want to participate in, with many of them having to go outside of the region just to participate in the sports that they're good at. Whereas I've noted in my written submission at the Lagoon, which I personally wouldn't like to dip my toe in, but this is a photo taken at an event, a fantastic event run by the Icebreakers Club, and Jeff behind me there is the president of that club. It's a fantastic event. It's an inter-club event, so it brings in clubs from outside of the region. This particular one, in fact, wasn't attended by 2 of the major clubs in Palmerston North, and as you can see, we've still got some pretty serious congestion issues. The other point about that event I want to note is that when you hold an event at the Freiburg Pool, which is the only place you can go for these events, you're restricted to 1 parent per family, and there is no seating for family members. You can see in the back of that photo, that is only for swimmers. Parents have to sit in awkward positions near the reception or cram down in the bottom right of that along the side, and they have to bring their own seats. So Jeff tells me that we've in fact lost the hosting rights for the North Island secondary school swimming competition because the facilities here are just not appropriate. I've got 2 minutes left. And I'm wasting it reading my notes. What's the next slide? I've mentioned already I see this as an opportunity. So it's an opportunity to provide for everybody for the next 50 years. In my written submission, I've referred to a lot of the council's, the city's strategies that you've all spent some time developing and improving. I believe a new facility is consistent with, well, all of them, really. And if you flip to the next slide, I just wanted to give you some sort of visualisation of what I had in mind. This is actually the Hastings pool, which is going to be built and opened by 2022. It looks pretty realistic. According to the Stuff article, it's an architect's rendition of what it will look like. But it's a facility with that type of seating. It's, if you go to the next slide as well, it'll a 50-metre indoor covered. It's very important. Here's some specifications on what pool sizes are required and what detail is required for the various sports that I had in mind. It's not just basic pool-size facilities that is the opportunity here. It's also the broader set of opportunities you can get from a facility like this, which is potentially to, at the same time, address some of the issues at the Lido facility, if it's located there, in terms of gymnasium. It relieves the pressure for all of the clubs as well in terms of their training requirements and learn-to-swim requirements, which are all being impacted by the congestion and I suppose the pressures that the clubs are putting on each other for lane space in the city. So it's a whole range of things that I've run out of time to talk about. If I may, just for 20 seconds, I just want to let you know I have read, I do understand the Sport New Zealand guidelines and in fact the regional sports plan, which in fact I've studied it. I'm aware it's under review. I know it refers to ageing population, which is interesting, but more than that, I would hope as it's reviewed, it looks at the impact of population growth on our facilities requirements, and it looks at the interaction between the facilities proposal that I'm bringing you and in fact the council's own strategies and the other strategies of other regional councils. 10 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Nick. Phoebe. We do have a question in the queue. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Nick. Thank you for coming to see us when we're not paying you to do so. A question, you put up a proposal, a solution for the Lido. You might be aware there's been some talk from secondary schools in the community. You know, St Peter's have been to present here, QEC are making some noises as well about potential pool. So I wondered if you had any comment or thoughts about why you would prefer a Lido option to a schools type option, if that's something you've thought about.
Well, this is my view on it, and I think I think it was important that I presented my view on it. I'm not certain what Swimming Manawatu and the clubs independently, I'm not sure how organised they are in coming to some kind of a joint view on what facilities are required. My own personal view is that the Lido is the obvious option. It is central. It is by the pedestrian bridge. It provides good connections with accommodation, good connections with other sporting facilities. Across the road, of course, there's the park, there's the hockey turf. It has the space. And if you were, I suppose, starting from scratch, I think the Lido is absolutely the right place. Just logically, it makes sense. As to the other proposals put forward by schools, I've seen a Stuff article yesterday about the QE2 or Queen Elizabeth College proposal. And I'm also aware a few years ago there was a St Peter's one. First of all, the proper answer is that I think the needs assessment that I'm asking this council to carry out would need to look at all the options. My view is that neither of those options are the correct option. They are, in my opinion, a short-term fix for a problem. And if I can take my reaction to yesterday's article about Queen Elizabeth College, first of all, it's great. I support all pools getting covered to enable people to get into swimming. But if it's going to come down to competition for funding, which I suspect it will, then my view is it should be done once and done right, with the right sort of investment in the right place. And the Queen Elizabeth College pool, it won't solve any of the problems that I'm bringing to this council, because it is a 5-lane pool. It's not 8 lanes. It's a 33-metre long pool. It's not 50 metres or 25. Those are the lengths of pool they made sort of 70 years ago. I suspect it'll cost much more than $1 million to actually turn that facility into something that's useful. And I think it really only covers, if I'm being frank, it really only solves one problem, which is just this competition over pool space at the Lido. It's not the answer, in my opinion.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Nick. I just want to ask the General Manager to comment.
Just a brief comment through you, Madam Chair, that Council is proposing to look at its aquatic facilities needs across the city. At this stage, it is just a proposal to look at that assessment.
In the 10-year plan.
Through the long-term plan.
Thank
you,
for that.
Madam Chair.
Thank you for that, Nick and Phoebe. So thank you very much for that. What we're going to do, just to have a little bit of a change to the agenda, we are looking to bring item 9 forward. Oh, first off, we'll just accept the item. So I'll look to receive, that the council receives this item, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Look to vote on that, unless there is any comment on it. No, no comment. We'll look to vote on that. Thank you. That's passed 100%. Right, we'll just look to Sport Manual 2 coming forward on item 9. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. With Julie.
Kia ora koutou, councillors. Got nothing further to add to this report except to note that it was done and available for the last committee and did get bumped due to a very full agenda that day. So we are talking about a period of time that is a long time ago now. Over to Trevor.
Kia ora tātou. Tēnei ngā mihi kia tātou katoa. Me mihi hoki ki te aukainga, noho mai ngā maunga whakahi, tūtonu mai. Me mihi hoki kua rātou mā kua wehi ki te pō. Me mihi hoki te rangatira o Barry Winks. No reira e te rangatira takoto mai, moi mai rā. Kia ora, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present our annual report. Obviously, I just wanted to start with acknowledging Hokainga and all the leaders here today, but also a special mention to the passing of Barry Winks. He was a legend in his own right, but he was also made a Sport Manual 2 Legend of Sport a couple of years ago. And for somebody who said he didn't want to say too much when he got up on stage at the awards, we couldn't get him off. So, but I think that's a huge loss to our community, not only in the sporting sense, but the other amazing work that he did in the community. So in terms of my report, as Julie said, it does go back some way to June 2020. I need to also make an apology that Brad couldn't be with us this morning, and so he's got very good at being able to delegate up, and so you've stuck with me. I'm actually going to just take the report as read, and I'm really keen to answer any questions would be my preference, so I'm not going to spend too much time going through the presentation, apart from getting to the last slide, which I think is a more pertinent slide where we can talk, I can talk a bit more about what's coming up and looking forward a little bit. So, as you know, those are the outcomes. We're a strategic partner with Council, and we're really appreciative to have that opportunity to be working closely with Council. It's great to hear the different presentations this morning thus far. Obviously, Palmerston's the most active community in New Zealand, which I think is a really aspirational goal. I think a key thing for us, I'm over this year, if I'm honest, and I can't wait both to get to golf this afternoon, but also for this year to finish, because it has been tough, I think, for everybody. I think every sector has struggled, but it's also shown how well Palmerston North and the Manawatu region have done in terms of the recovery. What I would say to you during COVID, Sport Manawatu took on quite a significant role with central government with the distribution of the Community Resilience Fund. And we were able to distribute that to support our community sporting organisations and active rec organisations to make it through the other side, so to speak. But also I will highlight the Active Communities Fund doesn't sort of seem very much against the 311,000 above, because I think the Active Communities Fund is a $10,000 fund from Council. And again, even though it's only $10,000, the impact of that fund in terms of supporting communities and families to participate in sport is hugely beneficial. Bike Ready and the Bike Ready information. One of the things is obviously using the shared pathways and cycleways. Again, we do really well with the staff that we've got involved with both working with Council around the delivery of the Bike Ready into schools. So again, I'm just waiting for that staff member to be stolen by somebody else, but that's what tends to happen when you've got really good people. Everyone is encouraged to be active. Again, we are working with Council around the play framework and the play pop-ups. Obviously, play has become really, really important. If it wasn't important before COVID-19, it's really, really important now. So you've heard from skating, your swimming, and all those sports. Look, it's all really important that young people are active. Our challenge that we have for our sports is really to get them to understand that balance is better. We need young people to be participating in every and anything possible. Facilities are a key part of that, but they're not the only part of that solution. Sports and community events, again, that's the significant part of what we do around the Sport Event Partnership Fund. And again, you can see the figure there around the economic benefit. There is no doubt attracting national sporting events, particularly the secondary school events, is a really great opportunity for this city. This city does it really, really well. But again, we can't be complacent and think that just because we've got this stuff that will be all sweet, because it's now really competitive. Lots of other councils with international tourism, domestic tourism numbers and getting events. Again, we were fortunate to obviously secure the Touch Nationals, but at some point we've got to be able to be real strategic around what we're trying to hold on to and what we're trying to attract, but ensuring we don't lose the quality of those events and activities. And I think that's an important part of that retention strategy. But at the same time, looking at what else we should be working to support to bring to this region. But we're not only just talking sport unto itself. This is the last slide. Sector update, really. Sport Manawatu was going through the strategic plan exercise with our board. Obviously, COVID hit and we weren't able to do our engagement, stakeholder engagement. So we'd like to undertake that process with the board and with our stakeholders, particularly with this council, early next year. And again, it gives us time to have a look at the kind of the sector issues within, given what's happened with COVID-19. I was trying not to say that word. Sport, obviously we've just secured our 4-year funding agreement with Sport NZ. So work will begin early next year around kind of what the initiatives and alignment will look like. Sport NZ has a new CEO that just started today. So expect to see some change over time. Sector conference, we held our conference and our annual public meeting earlier this year. And again, there's a real sense of working together as a sector, but also the need to have more opportunities to bring those communities together. Because whilst we're Sport Manawatu, what we're actually talking about is health and wellbeing, which fits really well into the council's aspirations. And sport, active rec and play are really part of the vehicle for that, rather than that unto itself. So Sport Manawatu, the name of our organisation, is partly a part of our challenge, because we don't just do sport, if you know what I mean. Says an athlete in myself. Regional facilities, you've heard a couple of presentations, and you've got the Bowls presentation coming up around regional facilities. Again, what I would say to this council, firstly, is just to acknowledge the leadership this council has shown around adopting the decision-making framework, because I think that framework provides the guide around making evidence-based decisions. And I thought the last presentation was great, and it was good that it was clearly his opinion on where things are. We often get caught up in where it needs to go. And so I think the important part, as was mentioned, is to do the work around the needs assessment and the feasibility side of it, and the where will take care of itself as part of that process. And again, the decision-making framework helps to do that. We are reviewing, we're up to the review part of the facility plan, so there is an expectation that we'll be going back out to the user groups and back out to sports to talk about needs, talk about those types of activities. So a lot of work that's happening in that space, and obviously working closely with council around the LTP. Upcoming events and activities, Christmas. There's the multi-sport holiday program, there's the pop-up play and fielding farmers market, the family fun ride, kick, the golf tournament, Parks Week, Esplanade Day. There's a lot happening in the region, which is fantastic to see people out and about. What I would say, just one last comment on the multi-sport holiday program, that was an outcome from COVID-19 during the period. We were able to get the sports together to get them to start thinking about how we might do a shared holiday program, rather than all the sports trying to attract their kids to their program. In January, you will see 11 sports working together to deliver one program. So kids pay one fee, and they get to experience all of those sports. And actually, I think Manawatu Bowls came into the office just the other day to say, can we be included? So again, I think we'll be looking at including a bowls option in as well as part of that. So again, I think that's a really positive sign around the working together side of things. So that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Trevor. Happy to take some questions. Yeah.
Brad's not here, but I will do my best.
Just going to ask you the first question. The regional facilities plan, when do you think that will be completed?
Well, it's due for a review. So we also need a sponsor. We need a council to take up the sponsorship of the role. So again, that could be something that this council may want to consider. The Manawatu Whanganui Regional Sport Facility Plan obviously covers 7 councils. So I'm not sure what it's like working with councils, but trying to get 7 of them together is fabulous. But I expect it to be done early next year.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Trevor. I've just got 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
You had, I'm referring to page 36 of our order paper, but I don't think you need to for the question. So you had 846 people referred to you for green prescription, and you had 232 graduate. So what happens to the people who, I appreciate some of those will choose not to participate from the beginning, but what happens to the people who sign up but don't see it through? What sort of support mechanisms in place, or refer back to the original referrer? What happens there?
So all of those things, but I think the key thing that we do is the phone support. So the ones that don't come into the program, we maintain them on our phone support. And so the idea is to keep them in the system, even though they're not participating. So again, I think they've made the first step. So as you know, once you've made the first step, which is great, is the next steps. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of how we engage with them. So we need to think about what that phone support needs to look like in terms of the different demographics that we have with the people that we're attracting to that course. But again, I think there's some significant changes ahead around how we engage with our different communities around access.
Okay, thank you. And then just my next question is, the reference would be on page 66. It's in regards to the climbing wall discussion. And so the comment there is that that should resume late 2020. And so I just wondered whether that discussion has occurred, what's sort of happening in that space, and if there was any current climbing wall or facility available in the city at the moment, which I think the answer is no, but if you could comment on that.
Yep, I think it's a really good question, and I think there is climbing wall activities out at the Massey Rec Centre, but there isn't in terms of the public access. So again, there is work underway at looking at bringing those groups together, and I think it's part of the strategic plan is to look at really what does. The reality is if everything's important, then nothing's important. So we're going to have to really focus on where we want to make the most impact. And I think providing access is really important. But as you know, once you provide the access, there's an ongoing operating part to it. You have lots of enthusiasm to get it off the ground, and generally what happens is they come back to you and a few years later asking for some help to maintain it. So there's some sustainability things that we need to keep thinking about. What we have got, fortunately through central government, they've got rid of the Kiwi Sport Fund, and now Sport Manawatu, we've been asked to distribute on behalf of government $750,000 per year for the next 3 years, which is a significant amount of resource, and that's really about activation. So we're looking to use that funding to be able to support different types of activities. It's probably not going to fund a pool. It'll be just a little bit short.
Thank you.
Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Trevor. I have two questions, and my first question is on your first page of your report. Palmerston North is the most active community in New Zealand. Is that a claim, or is that been,
I can answer that. So that's the council's current strategic direction under the 2018 long-term plan, which is one of the things that councillors are currently discussing in terms of what priority you want to set. Sport Manawatu's planning responds to council's direction. So if that's where council wants to see Sport Manawatu go in terms of the funding obligation that they have, we have with them, then that's something that they will strive to achieve. But if council reviews that, which it is currently in the position of doing, as you're aware, then that will be something that is guides their planning as well.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
Not their doing, our doing.
Okay. Number two, how interested Sport Manawatu is in bringing international events to the town or to the city, and what do you think are the limitations or?
Another fantastic question. I think this council supported Sport Manawatu at the last meeting with regards to support around the utilisation of the surplus around the Sport Event Partnership Fund. So we're looking to do a retention strategy, and as part of that retention strategy is an attraction part to that. So what are we doing to look after the events that we currently have that come to the city, and then what are the other events that we should be looking to attract? So we're working closely with council around what that looks like. My challenge would be, and this is pre all the disruption, is that what we need to still be doing is we've got some great unique features here in Palmerston City with the central location, our hotel providers, our facilities, even though there's lots of discussions about facilities. We're a great destination for these events and activities, but it's the added value and it's the quality experience we'll keep bringing them back. And again, no one organisation can do that I'd like to say it would be us, but I think it has to be done in partnership with all the other providers so that we're really clear that when they leave the city, that they're able to talk about the experience that they've had. And we know that through the secondary school sports, all those young people that come here through the volleyball, the basketball, whatever, they all know that this is where they come to for those events.
Okay, can I ask? My question actually was that, is there a plan, or are you looking into certain events to bring them to, international events to bring them to the city, or?
I would say not international events. We're not looking at international events at this point in time. But remembering that the Sport Manawatu's fund is a sport event partnership fund with largely a focus on secondary school events. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of really where our focus is at the moment around that retention strategy. But at the end of the day, it is working closely with council around what other events we're attracting, because it all has an impact. If we've got clashes with events that are here for the city and for sport, then we have some challenges around provisions.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Tēnā koe, Trevor.
Kia ora.
I just want to ask about the Priority Suburb Initiative that you started off in Roslyn. And I see from attachment 3, where there were some officer comments, that that's continuing and sort of expanding a bit, and whether or not you think, because that's kind of been the proof of concept, whether or not you think it's working and it could be extended to other suburbs, or what's your reflection on that as a project?
It's a good question. We are doing an independent evaluation of that work. Like you say, it is we are testing, and to be honest, that's the new game that we're all in. We need to keep testing stuff because we might not get it right, and so we need to learn from that and keep moving. And it's that ability to, what they call a fast fail. I'm really good at that part. But so yeah, the project is going really well. The level of engagement is really good. So we're hoping that the independent evaluation will provide us with the information to be able to look at what that would look like to then extend it into other regions, into other schools or within other communities.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
I was waiting for this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And kia ora. Just a couple of questions. One in the bike skills sort of area, and noting the high standard and quantity of training that's been delivered year on year there, and just sort of forward plans and expectations around ensuring continuity of delivery in that area.
Yes, we have Phil Stevens, who is an accredited NZTA cycling instructor. He's been with us for a large number of years. We've got a part-time worker with Phil, but we've also been able to train up 3 other staff. So there is a plan around making sure there is some continuity. And ultimately, whilst Phil specialises, we do need to make sure that we're in the game these days of everybody's got to do everything. You know, we're having less specialised roles now because more and more staff are needing to do a range of generalist jobs.
Great, thank you. The other question relates to the third appendix, which is the strategic partnership outcomes and the measures around that. I'm not real sure how much of that appendix is what you've populated, Trevor, or how much of it's what maybe officers' comments in there. So I'll just, I guess, put the question out there and then see where the proper response is. But noting that in a number of cases things are met, which is great. Good to know how that is sort of evidenced. But I guess most of my interest is around cases where things are in progress, not yet evidenced, under development. What sort of understanding we could take as a council around, I guess, timeframes of when that information will actually come to us and when we can expect some of those things that are probably for quite good reason in progress actually come to fruition.
That was one of those moments I was waiting like that Julie was going to jump in, but no, that's okay. I suppose what I would point to, Councillor, is the move that we've made to work closely with Allen and Clark, who are an insights and evaluation specialist agency based out in Wellington. And again, it's part of our, one of our objectives with Sport New Zealand, or with central government, and they're providing us with the expertise that we need to look at both insights and intelligence, and also the evaluation. So the evaluation for the Rosalind project and those types of projects, rather than thinking about doing them in-house, they've been done externally so that we've got some robust evidence around that. So I'm skirting your question because I don't know the exact answer without having to look through my details with Brad not being here. But I think there's still a combination of measures that we're aiming to achieve for council, and the balance between quantitative and qualitative. A real shift that we've seen is the shift from counting numbers versus what does a quality experience look like for people engaging in this work. And Julie.
I'm not going to save you. Just to add to that is that I think Trevor's right in that we are moving from a focus of counting outputs, to outcomes. And I guess the only comment I'd make, we're happy that the outcomes that Sport Manawatu has been working towards, I think there's a lot of work has gone on behind the scenes to make sure that this is a more meaningful way of reporting those outcomes. However, some of the citywide outcomes in terms of active communities and so forth, they're really long-term outcomes that we're going to see over years rather than on a 6-monthly or an annual cycle. So some of that higher level reporting, we will continue. You'll see that we've made some efforts to link those citywide outcomes to Sport Manawatu activities, and I mean, while there's a wiggly line rather than a straight one between what Sport Manawatu does and what happens in the city, we are trying to make more explicit links between the outcomes for the city and the activities that council funds. So work in progress.
Thank you. I guess to follow up then, I guess could you give us a sense of what we might be expecting in a year's time? Because at the moment it looks like I just don't have a sense of time around these things that are still in progress.
I'm not sure how many extra questions you're allowed, but thank you though. As I said
Many
before,
as he wants.
As I said before, I think our plan in terms of what we're doing in insights and evaluation is to have some clearly defined, measurable aspects of projects where we can make sure that we're doing them within the timeframe of our financial year. But there are the wider programs around the Active NZ report, which is due out next year, and then again that will give us a bigger sense of what Manawatu is looking like within the national picture. So I'm happy to share that our plan that we have around both insights and evaluation, which is what we've been tasked with through our work with Sport New Zealand, central government. But it does relate to the work that's, again, I don't want to push it just to central government, but the work that we are and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve here with council are a mix of long-term and short-term. Hence why we're doing evaluation-based work to balance that requirement for the need to look at return on investment within a certain time frame.
Great. Thank you both, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That is the final question. I don't know if we've got you in your time frame, but
no, that's fine. Thank you very much. I just want to wish wish all the council a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you. We just want to say that we did say this at the public meeting, but thank you very much for all the work that Sport Manawatu does do for our community. You have done a great job this year, even though it has been a COVID year, but thank you for all work that you have done for our community. Thank you, Trevor. Thanks to the team. I'd like to move the report that the recommendation that's on page 25, seconded by Councillor Meehan. I'd look to have any comment. No, there's no comment. We'll look to vote. Oh, there is comment. Oh, sorry, Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, Madam Chair, you were very quick off the mark.
Oh no,
there.
I was looking and there wasn't any.
Do you need me to keep the comment short? I just wanted to say that it's easy to well, no, it isn't easy. I guess that the whole Sport Manawatu report is very comprehensive, and it might seem easy that we just sort of skip over it, but there's actually a huge amount of very valuable work in it, and I think probably the most relevant thing that Trevor said is that this is becoming more and more less about sport and more about health and well-being. And in that regard, I just wanted to comment on the active community, active suburb project. So I'm just picking out one example of lots of good projects, but the way that that has been working in terms of community engagement first, so rather than an organisation coming in and kind of doing a project to an area, actually working with the community organisations that are already in that area to make an effective change, I think is a really good example of good practice, and I'm hopeful that when we see the evaluation from it, that we'll be able to think about rolling that out to other suburbs, because I think if one thing that we did learn from COVID was that people like to engage in their own area, if at all possible, and so those sorts of initiatives I think are very useful. And lots of really good projects. I was just one to comment on. Thank you.
Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to briefly comment as well. The reason that we take great interest in the reason that this work is so appreciated is because it is so important, and really commend Sport Manawatu on the year that's been, the challenging year that's been, but also look forward to getting some quality evidence back to this forum around what they are actually achieving and helping to express that. We'll accept that it's a journey towards those improved ways of measuring and that there's complexity about achieving that. But when we talk about some of these measures around, for instance, evidence that communities, children and adults, prioritize outdoor play in the home, community, school, and club. Really easy to put that sentence together. Quite challenging to actually pull together how we're going to tell that story, but fundamentally that's where this community needs to go, and we need to know that they're tracking well in that regard. So I am looking forward in a year's time to seeing more information brought to bear on some of these key success measures at the strategic level with Sport Manawatu. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think that it has been taken on board by the Chief Executive. He has listened to you. I think he did say in his opening statement that play is very important, and it is very important for Sport Manawatu. And I think the officers have taken note of that as well. So I do think that we do need to make that comment, and it has been made, and we do need to, and I think for all areas of sport, particularly with swimming has been noted, and for even with bowls, but play is a very important part of all of this going forward. The non-organised sport is a really important part of this for recreation going forward. So let's now look to vote. Thanks, everyone. Have a good game of golf, Trevor. That's passed 100%. Now, can we have our lovely community from the Bowls community come forward, which is presentation item number 7. Got Phil Meads here and your team. Do you want to introduce everyone, Phil?
Yes, my name's Philip Meads from the Takaro Sports Club. And to my right here is Mark Noble, who's the Bowls Manawatu Centre Manager. He's just been appointed this year. And to my left is Bill Anderson he's the President of the Northern Bowling Club in North Street.
Great. You've got 10 minutes, thank you.
Right, where we thought we'd kick off is if I just read out our presentation, and as I'm going through that, I'll probably just expand on one or two other areas. But this presentation is from the Northern and Terrace End Bowling Clubs, along with the Takaro Sports Club, who were part of the steering group, who appointed consultants in 2019 to prepare a pre-feasibility assessment on a possible partnership of bowling clubs in Palmerston North. The total cost of that assessment was $12,000, and that was considered by Council on the 18th of March, and it was recommended at that meeting that Council, when finalising its 2020-21 annual budget, which I understand was supposed to be in August, and of course that all got delayed because of the shutdown period that we had earlier this year. Consider incorporating provision of $50,000 to engage in external consultants to carry out investigations and reporting for the regional sports investment facilities investment decision-making process, including assessment of the best location for a covered bowling green. So that feasibility study was to review the pre-feasibility study and validate or otherwise and look at other alternatives in terms of the regional facility. Of course, since that meeting, a lot has changed, and after COVID-enforced lockdown, the Terrace End Bowling Club took the initiative, and we got together and looked at our costs and what have you, and they decided to terminate their lease at Samahay Street and have its members join the Northern Bowling Club, but with Terrace End Bowls as a separate entity sharing the facilities. So there's basically two bowling clubs now play out of North Street. Terrace End is one bowling club, Northern is the other bowling club. And of course, through this process, the annualised cost savings we've estimated through using just one site instead of the two is at least $60,000 a year. So you haven't got two sets of greenkeepers, you haven't got two lots of building insurance. And those potential savings, along with the remaining funds held by the Terrace End Bowling Club, will be tagged for future infrastructure projects at North Street. And that will be specifically for building renovations to better accommodate increased player numbers, because the facilities aren't set up, well, they're not conducive to the number of people that are there at present in terms of entranceway, toilets and other facilities. And of course, some of that money would also be retained as a contribution for the artificial green. Bowls Manawatu are now involved in the process to ensure the project aligns to regional outcomes, and that's with Mark's involvement. That previously wasn't the case. This has also meant a regular engagement with stakeholders, including Bowls New Zealand, in preparation for the project to resume. The Northern and Terrace End Bowling Clubs are now in the process of engaging with secondary schools, because they're basically right next door to the two major secondary schools in Palmerston North, with the support of Bowls Manawatu. And this is being done with Mark and Sharon Sims, who are both highly decorated and experienced bowlers. A secondary schools training program is being considered, and this may put Manawatu in a good position to host national secondary schools tournaments. Bowls Manawatu have commenced a coaching program with adult junior players, which is exceeding expectations. And Bowls New Zealand have also been very proactive in supporting our programs and have partnered with various social media as well as Sky Sports, where these competitions are now being brought live to the community. There is a lot of the 3-5 bowls is now on Sky TV. The feasibility assessment will determine the best location for a covered artificial turf that can be used as a regional facility. There are no covered bowling greens in the wider region. That's Manawatu, Wanganui, Hārwhenua, Taurua, and Bowls NZ and Bowls Manawatu support the erection of a cover in Palmerston North. Most regions now in New Zealand now have at least one covered green. The number of registered bowls players in the Manawatu area alone that would have the opportunity to access a covered green is 850, while there is also anecdotal evidence to support that there is an excess of another 5,000 community members who currently use our facilities and greens. Like there's one bowling club in Palmerston North at present that's booked up every day virtually through till Christmas with social events. There's a lot of social bowls now with barefoot bowls. And if you take all the sports organisations that are using some of these club rooms, like football clubs, rugby clubs, chess, indoor bowls, table tennis, there's a lot of people within our community that are using our facilities. The vacated Terrace End site has a market value of at least $2 million. The demolition and redevelopment of the site, along with the erection of new covered artificial green at North Street, could generate significantly more than this in economic activity in the city at no cost to the council. In fact, quite the opposite, the council could bank some money from proceeding with that. The request for funding from council for this project is also a one-off, and we want to stress that because we've never asked for funding for the bowling community from council in the past, and we've always maintained our own facilities. We'll continue to maintain those facilities at our cost. We will not seek further funding from council. Funds will be set aside each year in a term deposit to replace the green and the cover at the end of expected life. which in terms of the cover, you're talking close to 20 years, and permanent covered the cover is something like about 40 years. So at this stage, we're just, prior to the meeting next year, we're just requesting the council consider maintaining its recommendation to support the $50,000 needed to complete the feasibility assessment as soon as possible in the long-term plan. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I've just got a question for you. With the merger of the two clubs into one, have you been able to attract any new members because of that?
Yes, certainly have, and it's as well as that, the greens and everything has used so much that our greenkeepers basically said we've got to ease off a bit. It has certainly made a difference to the North Street side, that's for sure.
Right.
And of course, as you're aware, we've got the senior rugby club and now a senior soccer club also involved. So the site is very, very much in use. Yes.
And my second question was around the Palmerston North Club. And I don't know if you want to discuss that, but the Palmerston North Bowls Club, has any discussions been opened up with them?
No, they've not discussed. They've always, with this merger, they've never wanted to be involved. They've wanted to be independent all along.
Okay, so they're still wanting to be independent?
Yes. Okay. Well, as for Bowls Manawa 2, I don't know whether they're involved with Bowls Manawa 2, but
okay.
Definitely not with the
okay.
Terrace and Northern clubs.
Thank you. Okay. No further questions from anyone? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in. I do
Thank you.
Do really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay, looking to move that recommendation. Moved by Councillor Beattie, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Right, is there any comment? Look, there looks to be no comment. Great, so we'll look to vote. That's passed 100%. Thank you. Right, moving on, we'll just go back and confirm the minutes. We'll confirm part 1 and part 2 together. Nobody's got an issue with that? You do?
No, I just have a question on the minutes. I'm okay taking it together, but I do have a question on the minutes.
Okay. Do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Let me just find where we're at. On page 22, I note that in the comments there was a comment there around something that the officers said. And I was just wondering, when we go to record minutes, are we now recording the minutes of the officers even when they don't bring us a report? Because that was in response to somebody's submission. And so I'm just wondering how much is getting recorded into these minutes and how much is not getting recorded, and is there a consistent way that we're doing this?
Just a moment, I'll just get a response.
If I can throw some light onto this. In terms of what's recorded in the minutes, officers' advice and recommendations are on the record when it comes to reports attached to the agenda. When reports are not attached to the agenda, the officers' advice is recorded in the minutes, and so is any reason that actually accompanies any motion that comes from the floor that is not on the record.
So just to clarify, does that mean all officer comments will be noted for all things that we do all of the time?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, that's not the case, because officer advice is usually recorded in the accompanying memo or report that's attached to the agenda, or advice accompanying any advanced written notice of motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question as well, and it's actually a similar part of the minutes reflecting that phase of the meeting. It's the first full paragraph on page 22, where it says the committee agreed that mixing age groups is not, etc. And I'm just wondering, what form did that agreement take?
I'll respond to that through the chair. That paragraph there is part of that sort of reasoning to explain the resolution that actually follows. I think the wording the committee agreed is not the appropriate wording to use unless you're actually passing a resolution to agree. So you may want to actually correct those minutes.
So we could change it to noted, that the committee noted.
I don't believe we noted. I guess I would probably go as far as discussed.
Pardon, discuss?
Perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really want to get into debate about that, but if we want to make it discuss.
I think if I can, through Madam Chair, referring to it as elected members rather than the committee as a whole would probably be more appropriate in terms of elected members noted or discussed, whichever way you'd like to go. But using the committee as a whole is more appropriately used when it comes to a resolution.
Okay, so are we going to change it? You'd actually need to change the recommendation. Okay, just give us a minute. We're just going to do that now. Sorry, are you in the queue? We've got Councillor Johnson's in the queue. Sorry, Councillor Hancock, if you need to go in the queue. Councillor Johnson.
I've got a comment to make. It may not be appropriate to make it until the minutes are moved and seconded.
Okay, we'll wait till that then.
Thank you. So I'll go back in the queue at the appropriate time. Thank you.
The minutes were moved by myself, by Councillor Beattie and Councillor Meehan.
Okay. Are you happy for me to make comment then?
Yes.
At this point. So I just want to make a comment that during planning and strategy a couple of months ago, this kind of reporting into the minutes crept in. And I commented on it at the time. And it went back to officers, and there was not really any acknowledgement or agreement with my comments. And so the commenting in the minutes has continued, and now we see it's moving into areas that really, in my opinion, should not be recorded in the minutes. And the phrase, the committee agreed that mixing age groups is not the safest option, unless there was a vote on that, it's inappropriate that that phrase be in the minutes. And so I do feel that once comments start to be noted in the minutes, you get this kind of creep of what is actually noted. And if we're not careful, things will be recorded in the minutes that aren't actually correct. So that was why I raised the issue a couple of months ago, and it did not get any traction at that point. But I'll just note that now things are creeping in a bit further. So leave it there.
So the governance manager is going to remove the paragraph.
I think that would be entirely appropriate, thank you.
I thought this was going to be a simple process. Councillor Hancock.
That resolution suits me, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to remove that paragraph. Are we happy to vote? That's passed with 10 for and 3 abstaining. Thank you. I just need to let you know that the presentation from Norm Rapson from the Palmerston North Golf Course has withdrawn. Right, moving on to the next item, which is the Coholm Park refurbishment report, item number 10. Thanks, Kathy. On page 121.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll take the report as read. Just for councillors noting, this report covers the refurbishment at the park and not the tournament as a whole. So this is a standard report that you will start to see at one of the committees of council when a large project has been completed.
Thank you, Kathy. So I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Kathy. Really good to see these reports coming through various channels around sort of projects getting wrapped up. I guess my question is similar to ones that I've had before around what then happens in terms of sort of ongoing impact analysis. We've invested quite a lot here, and this is probably a once in a hopefully generation sort of investment in this particular area. So when we say final report, what's actually, if anything, planned in terms of understanding the longer term impact of these investments?
So I think this project's a little bit different to some of the others that you've seen in that when this was set up, it was set up with a governance structure, and it was set up therefore with some outcomes, and it was clearly defined before we came to what the solutions and options were, what those outcomes were. So it enables us now to manage those ongoing outcomes. And at the bottom of page, well, at 3.5, it talks about some outcomes of that project: positive community engagement, the Blackstock's intention to bring training events to the city, etc., etc. So those are all measurable things, and it does have the ability for us to be able to measure those outcomes on an ongoing basis. Certainly we have booking information for Coholm Park. We have that ongoing engagement with softball and baseball through Sport Manawatu, so it would be relatively easy to probably report on those types of things coming forward. However, under our current council reporting framework, there hasn't been an allocation to reporting at that level, but we do have that information and could at any time report it.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Kathy. So my question's around 2.5 in the report, around the insufficient funding in the original budget and the need for an increasing budget of approximately about 40% probably over budget. So can you just explain, was that due to additional work being added in, or was it because the work that we anticipated doing was tendered at a higher price? Because I see you've said the quantity surveyors' estimates were still well above budget. So is that... Yeah, I'm just getting into a spiral here. But basically, can you explain a bit more detail about why it went so far over budget? Was it extra work? Was it that the estimates were too low? Was the tender too high? What was the story there?
Actually, it was neither. The situation why the project cost more than the original budget, is that the budget was a 2018 LTP budget for refurbishment of the facilities and the public toilet at the park. What then happened is the World Cup came along, and there were the level of refurbishment which we had planned, which was a like-for-like modern equivalent, address any building compliance issues, then moved into a project where we needed to upgrade to a higher level in order to accommodate the World Cup that we had then made a commitment to accommodate.
So it's more like a project increased scope rather than anything else?
Yes, it was. It was an increased scope. In fact, when we went out to the market, regardless of the QS, we actually came back with a better contract price than we had anticipated. But it was the scope of the works increased. And as explained in the report, one of those things was asbestos and other building compliance issues that had to be addressed that weren't originally anticipated in that 2018 estimate.
So when we agreed to host the World Cup, were we aware that that would mean increasing the budget, or did that come afterwards?
I'm sorry, I can't comment on that because I wasn't part of the group that put together the bid for the World Cup.
And I can't remember, I'm afraid, which came first. So I'm just wondering at what point the additional budget was requested. Was that as a separate item, or was that? It says here as part of the 1920 annual budget process, but my recollection is it was a separate item.
Yes, we brought a report to Finance Committee about the project and the costs, and got approval for that additional funding before we moved on with the project.
But at that point, we'd already agreed to host, I think, hadn't we?
Yes, we had.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Kathy. My questions were also around the budget, and I was just trying to track how it increased. So I see in 2.5 and 2.7 that it increased from 966 to 1.4 million. But then in 3.6, it's also said that the budget has been overspent by 204,000. So I'm just wondering, does that mean we've spent 1.6,000, or has that overspend been included in the 1.4 million that's outlined in 2.7?
I'm not sure that I can actually answer that question. I'm sorry, I was expecting Elise to be here as well. But my understanding was that the additional money that we secured, as outlined in 2.5, was what we knew at the time to be able to do the project, and that you are correct, the money that is mentioned in 3.6 is over and above that. So my understanding is, and I stand to be corrected, is that you are correct, it came out more 1.6 overall.
Thank you.
That appears to be all the questions, Kathy. Thank you very much. I'll look for a mover of the report. Councillor Dennison, would you like to move it? Yeah. Seconded by Councillor Hancock. Now I look for comment. Councillor, yeah, I can see that. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was a significant project. That money was in the long-term plan for the upgrade, and as the officer mentioned, that it was a sum that was more put aside, and we've found out with the asset management plans that it's not always enough. But when we had the world event secured, we went through and worked out what we had to cut, and some of the cuts were around the kitchen facility, but the additional costs that come to council were for, like the officer mentioned, those unforeseen things to keep us up to the building code. So there was some additional fire exits that were needed off the deck, and there was also a disability ramp that needed to be installed at the front of the facility. Those were some of the additional treatments that were needed, and then a complete upgrade of the washroom facility to increase the capacity for the needs of a world event. But the work was done. I just really wanted to credit the staff because the timeline to get the work done and completed was so phenomenally tight. And I've never seen a project executed so efficiently and effectively. And that's credit to the project management of young Elise Novelov and the support with Kathy Diva-Todd and also property through Bryce. And also with the grounds with Glenn Finlayson, just highly acclaimed feedback for the type of work and commitment they put towards this project. So nationally, council was seen to really being quite an impressive response to ensure the event was such a success. And I just wanted to acknowledge those key people and the council as a whole and the support of the elected members. It was phenomenal to see a project executed so well. The 204,000, you'd also know that we got installation of some top quality lighting for the World event, for the TV coverage. And that's where the transformer need come in, because when we worked out the capacity that was actually at the park, it was nowhere near the need, and that was something that was responded to quite readily just to make sure the lighting was able to operate. So I was well aware that that was going to be part of the total cost, but of course we didn't have the timing for the reporting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I think this is a good example of how very often council will agree to a project that we think is worthwhile, but then later on down the track the costs can escalate, and at that point I think it's a good decision to decide to continue with the project and make sure that it's a successful and effective project. So, good job.
I think we'll look to vote.
Madam Chair, sorry, I thought I was in the queue.
Oh, no, you weren't, but you are now. Okay, we'll look to Councillor Naylor vote.
Sorry for that. Yeah, I definitely think that there's some good outcomes for this in terms of the facilities, and that's been well covered. I do think, the brief comment I want to make in terms of the creep that occurs with the increase in costs, which in this case is around 60%. I think it's important that we have better information during the decision-making process so that we can be making decisions about investment with some sort of accurate perspective on what the actual investment's going to be. I guess we're seeing this happen a number of times, and whether the decision would have still been to support a $1.6 million investment, we'll never know because we didn't have that information. So it's just about, and I realise there's a lot of work around that happening, but I think just for our decision-making process, I think that's a really important point to make.
Let's now vote. That's passed with 100%. The final item is the committee work schedule. Do you have any comment on that? No. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I just want to seek a comment from the General Manager, noting that the Memorial Park report is now coming to Council next week, whether we will keep a report on this work schedule to review the delivery of that project.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that was the intent by having this on the work schedule.
And can you indicate when you expect that report to come forward, please?
Not at this stage.
Thank you.
Right, I'll look to move the work schedule. Seconded by Councillor Barrett. Any comment on the work schedule? You want to comment on that? No? Okay, we'll look to vote. All right, this being that passed with 12 for and 1 against. This being my last sport, plays, recreation and sport meeting. I'd like to say thank you very much, as Chair. Thank you very much. Looking forward to handing it over.
And thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any advice on what's happening this afternoon?
So what is happening, we are going to lunch. I can just tell you we are going to lunch and we are going to be back by, are we going to turn off the cameras? Just turning that off first. Are we off? We off now?